Hey man.
Tadeo, the organizer of ETH Gathering, the first and foremost crypto conference in Barcelona, man. You heard it here first, you've seen him here first, the man himself. Give us a couple of words.
Thank you very much for the kind words, Ralph. No, very excited for everyone to be here. I really deeply, from my bottom of my heart, I'm really thankful that you guys came, participating in the panel. I'm loving the people that came here. I think it's a pessimism in me that thought someone was going to go wrong, and somehow it hasn't. So yeah, super happy with that.
You made it, man. You made it.
Yes, indeed, folks. Welcome to another episode of Drinks with MakerDAO Delegates. On today's show, we have some special MakerDAO community members, delegates, core unit members, and individuals like myself, your co-host, Cruz. And also, we have my boy from Germany. Which one?
Raphael, do you consider yourself being a German now?
No, I'm an Austrian. I'm a citizen of the world, European, statesman,
Right?
Roman.
There you go. All right, so we're joined by Raphael, the Austrian sensation, and Tim Schuppner, a.k.a. Schuppy, straight out of the streets of Germany. On today's show, we have a very special guest, an individual who's the first one ever to make a second guest appearance on Drinks with MakerDAO Delegates. Let's hear it for Tadeo.
Thanks for having me again. I'm very happy. Let's make this a constant thing. Just add me to every other Drinks with Maker Delegates. I'm in.
Once a quarter. How about that?
There we go. Yeah, we could
actually
do a little like recurring segment.
Yeah. I think you were one of the guests very early, right? Like in episode number 3 or something.
I hope I am that special, no? Yeah.
I think it wasn't it really early. I just I hardly can remember, to be honest. But it
was so long ago. There's been so many episodes since then.
8.
Well, it's good to have you back, Tadeo. For those folks who might not know who you are and what core unit team or what your role is as a Maker community member, just give us kind of a quick background on who you are and what's your core unit all about.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. My name is Tadeo. I am the facilitator for the Data Insights core unit. We essentially mostly we do data analytics at Maker. We've been focusing mostly on data engineering, essentially getting the on-chain data in a really nice, clean format so everyone can use whichever way they want to use it. And then as of late, we've been working more on the end of that process, actually delivering the analysis, the websites, dashboards, and that kind of thing for users, either in all around the community, to be honest, like core units, partners, and also users.
Terrific. And you recently, you went to work really hard, man. I'll give you some round of applause there for that. But you put together a conference, a crypto conference, which is a really hard thing to do. I'm sure you had some people that helped you out on this. It's branded as ETH Gathering, and that's a great name, by the way. It took place in Barcelona. Give us the dates, when it happened, how it happened.
Hello. El Pro Schuppy Drinks with Delegates happy hour from a very special location. We're here in Barcelona, in the province of Catalonia in España, with fellow delegate JUSTINCASE, who just arrived from the north.
From the north.
Justin,
Yeah.
I heard Maker is planning to buy off the government of Spain to make Spain into the most crypto-friendly regulation of the world. Is that true?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I can confirm that. We've been talks with the Spanish government on how to proceed on this. No, I'm just joking. But it would be wonderful, wouldn't it? It would be absolutely wonderful. But I think probably Switzerland is the better bet right now, because they seem to be the guys who are most crypto friendly, or at least most open to the idea of integrating crypto in a regulated manner. So it's a very interesting topic. It's kind of difficult having those worlds collide, right? Because there's very different from how we experience DeFi, and when you sort of get governments involved with their iron bars of bureaucracy and layers upon layers of decision making. I think it's going to be a very long process before we actually something working. I think there's probably going to be some breaks along the way, and you might get some backlash, like from the FTX thing, right? Like knee-jerk reactions.
Let me get a little bit more clarity here, because I think we've seen regulators already announcing that they will now, after the FTX debacle, step in with more regulation. How can DeFi protocols ensure, or at least work towards, favorable regulation that will actually help guide the space into the right direction? Like, what do you think we could do, and is there anything you see actually happening in that regard?
I think DeFi needs to specialize a little bit more. I think DeFi itself could survive as an unregulated entity, but I think once you start touching retail segments, then it will be very difficult to not have regulators involved, because typically all the governments want to protect their common citizens, and they're very sensitive to mom and pop getting their savings rugged. So I think we're going to possibly see a pivot towards more purely decentralized actors working in more of an internal markets, and then you're going to have more regulated entities that are going to act as gatekeepers between especially retail and the DeFi world, and maybe also more TradFi and the DeFi world.
Who helped you with putting this together? Because obviously you couldn't have done it by yourself. So big shout out to all the folks who helped out put the ETH gathering event together. I think it was an awesome event. And yeah, give us a bit of background there.
Wait, we forgot something. The first point of order in every one of our meetings is the tasting of the drinks.
The drinks.
I have to taste it while it's still cool, right?
And today I bring you, given that I don't drink, so I can't be on you guys' level, but I'm going to broaden your horizons with non-alcoholic drinks. We have here one of the best sparkling waters in the world. It's called VICHY CATALAN, very local to Catalonia and Barcelona. It has won several awards, which I'm surprised I won more than one, because after the first one, you kind of done. Now, the cool thing about this one is it's quite mineralized, kind of like it has a taste. So I'd say, I'm not sure if you tried it when you were here for the conference. You need to get used to it, but once you do, you're hooked on it. Highly recommend with a splash of lemon. It's the best way to have it.
And that's VICHY CATALAN?
VICHY CATALAN.
VICHY CATALAN.
No.
Very beachy. Okay, got it. That's awesome. I don't know how you can kind of get a taste of water, but
oh yeah, you absolutely can. There's people that full-time job they analyze how good a water is.
So
I also have a.
It's a sparkling water, right?
Yep.
So you cannot show us the bubbles now, because you don't have a glass, right?
Yeah. So I can be lying to you technically, and you wouldn't know.
So actually, I'm a heavy customer of sparkling water. I think it's quite of a German thing, because I sometimes have issues being abroad getting the right water. So I should put this on my for my next visit in Barcelona.
Definitely try it out. I wouldn't recommend making like Aftershore with it. It doesn't really go well with a combination, but yeah. Is it orange saft? No, orange Schorle.
Apfelschorle is good.
Apfelschorle.
There you go.
Yeah, but yeah, Schorle is also a very German thing, I'd say.
Mhm.
So how do you rate it? How many stars do you give for
Oh,
this water?
10 out of 10. Like
10 out of
it's,
10, which translates
yeah.
to 5 in our scale. We
Wait,
just
sorry, it's
rate-
out of 5?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's out of 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then 5 out of 5.
Wow. Wow. Is that the
Yeah, no,
best rating
definitely.
ever? Did we ever have a
Yeah.
5?
I don't
Yeah.
think so.
Have you had a 5? I
I
mean,
think
this
so,
cannot
yeah.
be anything but a 5.
Wow.
I'll fight anyone.
I mean, can you imagine on Drinks with MakerDAO Delegates, Tadeo, our guest, comes on and he defines the odds against water experts who've given this water, I think 5 years in a row, you said, or something like that. 5 stars, 5 years in a row, and then Tadeo comes in here and he's like, no, it's a 3.5.
That's true. Can't
So,
have
yeah.
that.
We'll take his word for it. It's a 5. VICHY CATALAN water from the streets of Catalana, Barcelona. All right, so let's get to it. What do you got on your hand there, Raphael? Looks like you have something really, really special this time.
So I ventured out a little farther than usually. Usually my last beers were from this region here, Allgäu, and now I traveled to the capital of Bavaria, Munich, to get this wonderful beer. Wunderbräu. They say that they only source the ingredients from within 100 kilometers and mainly use their bikes. I don't know if I can believe that. It's a little stronger than usual.
Super cool.
Mm.
Whoa, easy there, boy. Cowboy.
Why that happened? That happened because you were dancing with the bottle in the intro.
That's true.
By the time you did that, I had the feeling this is not going to end well. So.
This is like a very, very typical Bavarian Helles, even though it says Pils, but it's incredibly sweet. I would give it like a 2.8.
That's bad. Yeah.
Yeah,
I can continue because I also have a beer. It's not really special. It's a Krombacher. It's kind of a large brewery in Germany, I think from Kreuztal. This is basically a small town located between Dortmund and Frankfurt. But it's quite a common beer. You can get it everywhere in Germany, and I don't know. I haven't had it for a long time, I would say. But yeah, again, I'm running out of options, so I need to try that one. It's actually it's not too bad. So it's a bit sweet, but pretty much just the plain Pils. So I can give this a 3.5. I'm catching up.
That's acceptable. Got some tough critics when it comes to beers over here on Drinks with MakerDAO Delegates, which is super cool, right? But don't take our word for it. Go out there and get yourself to one of these stores in the world and try to find some of these beers that we're drinking here, because yeah, I think that I would like to think that some of these Germans and Austrians I'm being joined by do know their beers. I hope they do, especially you, Chupi. Looking at you, brother. But yeah, I have sort of a Christmas beer that's only minted during the holidays. It's a holiday ale brew. It's called the Mad Elf. Let me see if I could get there, but it's got a little elf on it. It's very high content alcohol. Unfortunately, it's 11%.
What?
Wow.
Yeah, 11%, and it's a spicy Belgium, the yeast. So I did my homework here, and it has a taste of well, they use sherries in it supposedly, and man, you know what? We got to get somebody here from the Belgium area, because they probably know more about this than
we should get Wouter on here. He also already gave lessons about what's the difference between French and Belgian fries. That's actually pretty interesting. So we should get Wouter in here and then have
Definitely.
a Belgian session.
Bring in the expert.
Yeah, this is nice. It's very strong, though. I can tell it's definitely 11%, and it's also a bit of a dark. You can't see it, obviously, but yeah, I'm gonna give this a 4.
Have you had in the Lagunitas in the show?
I believe I've had it, yes, myself. Lagunitas.
Oh, yes.
It's a very good beer. How do you know about Lagunitas? You're not supposed to be drinking, man.
Right? I had a previous life to this where I did drink. I know I actually met, I had a friend that is from the town that Lagunitas comes from.
Yeah, that's out in California, if I'm correct. Awesome. Good to see you, being on the show again. We have a lot to talk about. Second week of December, closing out the year 2022. It's been obviously a rough year for the ecosystem. So much going on. I'm pretty sure the folks already know, so I'm not going to get into the negatives, but let's get into the positives of what's happening. You're with Data Insights Core Unit, which is a MakerDAO core unit. What are your thoughts going into 2023, the state of your core unit, and other things that are happening in the MakerDAO community?
Oh, super excited, to be honest. As you mentioned, like, it's been hard. It's definitely hasn't been the best time. But I think we can very much see the positives of the actual situation, where, let's say, a bear market kind of goes away with like just the pariahs and the basically like the noise, and there's much more signal to everything. You're not going to build something that doesn't make sense, because it's very easy, it'll just flop. I mean, at Maker, particularly with the reorg towards Endgame, also a lot of stuff to do, but also exciting that we already had core units for about a year and a bit, almost 2 years, I think. And there's definitely a lot of things that do work and a lot of things that don't work. And with those kind of learnings, we're transitioning to another way to, like, again, there's a lot of things I think get fixed. So a lot of things that we still need to define. Like, I think that we haven't still touched, but super exciting times to do it. And with the team, super happy. We finally come at the start of the year, we were very against the idea of building front ends, and we really wanted to kind of just build the back end and then have other teams or other just people in the community build on top of us. That didn't really pan out as much. And we ended up having, basically, we have like super users that we collaborate a lot with. But then we realized it's asking a lot from people to just magically or organically just come up and build something using our API or Google Sheet reports. So now we are doing that, and I think it's proven quite successful. And again, it's like the moment you give them an example or showcase, then you also incentivize people to actually go and use the underlying data sets. So kind of happy with that, and then excited with the, obviously a little bit with the low work and a little worry on what's actually gonna pan out in next year, but excited for the changes.
Do you think that that the next bull market is around the corner, or you think that's gonna still be quite a while until we can kind of see a pickup?
I've heard a lot of theories. I kind of agree with the one that gives us about 2 years of bear market, and then a new possibility of having a bull market. Because I think we need to kind of have a lot of things happening at the same time. With the world economy still in the fritz like it is right now, we're not really going to have anything. But yeah, like I was listening to someone the other day was mentioning that in the last bull market, there was a lot of basically disappointment from the general public that onboarded onto crypto, tried to use it and realized like the experience was horrible. So hopefully with layer 2s and account abstraction and like actually people building proper like front ends or applications, I think we're going to be ready, essentially.
I mean, I think you're dealing with data, right? And looking at data. So I think, what were kind of the first indications that you saw of the space moving into a bear market from a data perspective? What?
I think it's mainly the usage of, let's say, Ethereum usage or just transferable volumes, just everything depressing down. I mean, you also see it on the other side when we were basically in the bull market or like ramping up, like just with it. Yeah, but like actually with the data, I just seeing what was happening in different spaces, particularly Luna. It's just like, it was insanity. And I'm really thankful for Maker as a community that the first moment I heard about Luna was someone from Maker, and like the second thing they said is like, this will explode. Like it's just by design. And everyone else around the space was congratulating Luna, super excited about it. It was like DeFi 2.0, 3.0, whatever. And then it was obvious, right? But like, it was very difficult to be in the space and be the one calling it out. Happy to be with these skeptics.
And as we go through the end of 2022, what are some of the memories that you have from the last 11 and a half months? You know, I can recall going back to when I first met you, even you know, hanging out with you in the park over there in the Netherlands. I can't remember the name of it, but that was super cool when we had a little ETH gathering, the early stages of it, live and uncut at the park over there in Amsterdam, I should say. Yeah, so what are some of the memories that you can recall for the last 11 months as you were beginning to evolve as being a member of the MakerDAO community, running the core unit, and also transitioning into the facilitator role? What are some of the things you can think about?
Yeah, I mean, it's been super positive. I joined the core unit at the end of last year. I had been I've been kind of like a community member, just being around the forums and doing like a couple jobs around for like the previous year. It was like the warm embrace, like meeting you and meeting the other at that time the facilitators and core unit members, and then every time we met in person, just meeting new people. Like as of late, it's been Raph as well that I got the pleasure of meeting. Just being very well welcomed to the community. I think that's been particularly a big highlight. And also like the learnings. Like I spent a year as a community member just reading and Maker and just in general. It's like I have one conference, I sit down and talk to someone for like half an hour, and I've learned more there, or at least I've kind of processed all the information that I had from before, and that's been invaluable. It's been an intense year, to be honest. Not as you mentioned, like going to a facilitator role where like I'm doing both the internal work in my team. My position is more like more project management, and then I end up doing a bit of like data analysis, bringing that into a mix where I'm also dealing with governance and participating in that, with feedback, with I know financial reporting, all that stuff. It's been tough, I gotta say, but again, it's a ever-changing organization, which is also makes it interesting. It's dynamic and it's just not stale. So that's been like really rewarding. But yeah, kind of hoping for a slow start of the next year. Or at least a little bit of a slowdown, I'd say. Slowness is the better word.
Slow start in anything anymore. I think I guess it's going to be pretty bumpy for at least the next 12 months.
Yeah, I have to present the new budget, the budget renewal in January. Oh my, January is going to be an intense month, not just for me, but in general. We're going to have all the SPFs. We're going to have all their budget renewals. People, it's going to be the first time that core units kind of start, let's say, position themselves for the endgame role. In my case, for data insights, it's a ecosystem actor. So it's going to be a lot of, very, very kind of like there's not going to be that much consensus, right? Because I can come up with my own model and then the other team comes up with their own model. So I'm definitely going to be bugging you and the rest of the delegates a lot to get feedback.
Yeah, but I think that's exactly how the process should work. That consensus is kind of more emerging than kind of pre-agreed on, because I think like when people have to actually throw the cards on the table, that's when they are at their best, right? Like that's when they really care. And before, when everything's up in the air, everybody's saying everything that they want. And then, if you like really have to say like, okay, I'm making my bid now, then this would better be good, right? So I think it's a really interesting forcing function. What just came to mind was like, I mean, you can think about the guy with what you want, but like Elon Musk telling Twitter that the next months are going to be extremely hardcore. I was like, I guess they will, wherever you are at the moment. It's just like one of these times where it's kind of like you said, right? Like there's just less left to hide behind, right? Like you have to deliver. Did data insights needs change in the last few months, like from the kind of questions you get asked by core units, like especially for instance with budgets or with usage, or did the requests change?
I think rather than change, they matured. I think at the start there were Yeah, the requests, or at least the needs, weren't that well defined, and then just through a process of iteration, you get to like something more grounded. Let's say, from the perspective, I know, like a team like growth, when at the start of the year they were asking for general metrics, nowadays they're very much, they already have that now. So now they're asking very precise questions, which is super interesting to go in and work on those. And then from our side, on my side, it's also, now that I've done a couple of these cycles, I have a better understanding of like where the need is going through. One of the challenges of like working as a core unit is that, again, I don't have a direct boss or direct stakeholder, so it's really much about trying to figure out what the community needs the most through either core units or just in like internal needs, and kind of come up with something that fits both sides. Like for example, now like we're about to turn on the DSR for the first time after I don't know when there was the last time that we had it on.
1.5 years ago, maybe even 2. But
yeah.
Yeah.
So there was, for example, there's no metrics related to DSR at all. I think the only thing we have right now is Maker Burn shows the amount of DAI in the DSR contract, but there's a lot more interesting things there, seeing the transfers in and out of DSR, so you can compare why, let's say, because maybe there's better yield somewhere else. And particularly for us is that I think the biggest users of DSR will be other protocols. So understanding what protocols are using DSR as a underlying mechanism would be super interesting for us. So it's like, I think maybe if this had happened like the start of the year, maybe we wouldn't have been so in tune to say, okay, this is definitely important. Now it's just obvious.
So you have like in the data, you have the ability to say, okay, now this is compound depositing, and this is Aave depositing, and this is whatever.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. At the end, we base ourselves like 99% of the data we handle is on-chain data. So the real value that we bring is doing that translation from events and just random transactions down to this is what actually humanly happened, or like human readable actions.
So tagging, curation.
Yeah, a big one now that I'm already doing the documentation. It's for how fees work in the system. How we this whole free accrual that we have in the underlying vault system. It's basically a compounding automatic. It's automatically compounding, and that gets also thrown into the DAO. So we push that into as a surplus buffer even before we actually receive any DAI back as fees in reality. And this stems from the assumption that we used to lock in, or we currently lock in crypto collateral, and that our liquidation system works correctly. Without holding that assumption true, then yeah, those accrued fees, you can pretty much assume that they're finalized or crystallized, and that's fine. But now with the new stuff that we're doing, like the D3M, for example, real assets, more importantly, we are in a way, a lot of times we're accruing fees that the assumption is much larger. So like just translating that to like, actually, this is what we see on chain, but this is the reality of it. Yeah, that's where I think that's where the most impact that the data insights can have.
But how is this really different between D3M and the classical vault system? I mean, in both systems, actually, the depth increases over time automatically. The depth compounds essentially.
Not necessarily, not technically on D3M. So D3M has a different system where we actually use a keeper to do a rebalancing of the pool that like the liquidity we're providing. I'll take the example of Aave. So actually, we only know how many fees we've accrued, or the system knows only once we do the wind down, and then we receive back the DAI.
Okay.
So actually, any revenue earned from the D3M cannot be used to pay DSR before the D3M is wound down.
Yeah, in a way, it's like knowing when knowing the difference between fees accrued and fees received, let's call it, or something like that. It's like knowing what we have on hand and what we are being promised. So like making that decision right now, we don't really have it, which again, it hasn't been a problem because real assets has never been a significant amount of our portfolio, D3M either, and it hasn't had that much time. But then I think now we're going to start seeing the problem. It's like,
I mean,
also in the
D3M,
similar side. Sorry.
Not more of that in the future. Sorry, but
Yeah.
I assume that the D3M model is going to be a large portion of the cake in the end.
Yeah. Exactly.
Interacting with clusters to do stuff.
Yeah.
So
like for example, what we did I think it was like yesterday or the day before that we liquidated the USDCEA and USDPA vaults. It's pretty much the idea that we were technically showing that we had generated fees, but in reality we never had, or we were never expecting that to happen. So we flushed the system, which is the right thing to do. But until that point, nowhere in let's say on the analytics side of things, could you as a user look at it and be like, actually these are actually not real fees in a way.
Very
so
cool.
kind of, yeah.
That was possible to do. I mean, I don't know of any application to do that, but it's actually pretty easy to find out what's the collateralization ratio of a vault, and then you can easily find out if there is bad debt in the future for the protocol. So it's just a question on how to display that. But it's
exactly.
Yeah. But I mean, probably you're right. I think the flushing this was a good thing to do, because now we actually have the cleared books, right? And of course we made some loss as well during the liquidation. It's not that we got that all for free. So it's good that it's written off. Yeah.
Yeah, for me it's like we should technically reality we should have this clean accounting already on chain, right? Like we shouldn't, the real assets could have been done in a way that we don't use this accrual system and so on. But yeah, for me, it's like what I want to do from the inside is really just provide the translation layer right now, but hopefully in the future we actually build stuff on chain that actually does that accounting for us, rather than, again, I don't want anyone to rely on me as a single source of truth, because like it doesn't fit the ethos that we have.
All right, I got the most important question of the segment. Will Argentina win the World Cup? No, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna put you on the spot there, but you know, we have MakerDAO, it's no secret, headed into a pivot known as the Endgame state. And obviously a lot of core units will more than likely ossified, right, and become part of the Endgame ecosystem, which will have a bunch of subDAOs that used to be known as MetaDAOs, but I'm not even going to go there because it's my opinion. But yeah, they have these subDAOs, and before the subDAOs, there's this clusters, and the clusters eventually will either get voted in by MKR token owners to become subDAOs. And there's also going to be ecosystem actors, which will be surrounding the subDAOs to provide services, and also to the clusters early on, right, during the early game. So as a core unit facilitator, the lead on your core unit, how are you thinking about the transition to pivot into the endgame state, the endgame plan? What are your thoughts there as far as you and also your core unit team members, which are very valuable to the MakerDAO community?
Yeah, so we're happy. Maybe I'm very happy that we're starting to see a bit more clarity. A lot of people at Maker are working on this, so we're starting to get a bit more consensus or like clarity on different aspects of the project. I think it was a bit worrying several months ago when I didn't feel like I barely even had a grasp on it. Now I feel more comfortable. Really happy with like Dennis from Dux that did the Endgame workshop during his gathering. That was super useful. Yeah, no. So for us, like we are all very much, we love Maker. So we want to serve it as best we can. My current thinking is that we'll become an ecosystem actor. Serving the different MDAOs. Well, looking at it from like a scope perspective, what we need to really make a decision is whether we'll try to serve multiple scopes or actually just specialize in certain scopes. I think you can make the argument right now for both. I always try to maybe grab a bit too much or say yes to maybe too many things. So maybe it actually makes sense to kind of reduce our scope and say these are specific, these are the primary or the secondary scopes that we take into account, and we focus on that. Yeah, the big challenge will be that rather than having one overall conversation with governance when it comes to deciding budgets, it's going to have to be more granular. Like we're going to have basically negotiations and deal making with each MDAO and each other particular actors. Something that I'm also exploring, but I think I also need a bit more definition, is the other areas like the governor role, tribunals, councils, that in some way or another you do need access to data or analysis on how that could be provided. What do they really need? I think, yeah, again, obviously it's a very subjective perspective coming from the data guy, but for me, it's like everyone needs data or everyone needs synthesized information.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to second that, because like we've been building up a little bit maker capabilities in Flipside, and I just know from talking to the data guys that it's very hard to do that well. And so I think at the same time, when you look at this whole construct in the end game, where you have these multiple DAOs and then you have multiple control instances that have to make decisions about that, you need some kind of basis for these decisions. And to get the basis of these decisions, you need data in a way that data availability in a way that makes it possible for people to even query it, because like otherwise it's just going to be, you know, flying blind, and I don't think that's a place where we want to be.
Yeah, and then other questions, like right now our setup is like it's more on the simple side, where we have a budget given by Maker governance, and then we break down the needs from every stakeholder, and we try to serve as many people as possible. But then if you move into a model where there's more like it's basically a budget bilateral agreements, you start having questions like what happens with like shared resources. It's like what happens with like, I don't know, I totally can see some DAO paying for analysis or services related to vault usage data related to the vaults that they control or manage. But then what you do with governance data, like who pays for actual governance data that affects everyone? So those kind of questions that I've been talking well with some of you, also co-unit facilitators or people that will take leadership positions like in clusters to also like kind of start tentatively figure out what those needs are and what's the best delivery model for that.
You mentioned that in the month of January, which is less than 30 days away, there's going to be a lot of core units, including Data Insights, is going to be looking to renew their budget. I believe yours ends, I should say, in March, around that time frame. How are you approaching this as the facilitator of your core unit? Because I know there's been a lot of budget rejections by both recognized delegates and MKR token owners. Some still want to keep some core units, but the way we understand the end game, there's only going to be a few core units, more than likely around for the first year of the end game state. How do you approach this? What's your thinking? What kind of clarity do you need from delegates and MKR token owners, and also the end game state of what's needed, how long core units that might not fit in 12 months from now into the end game, how they should be preparing? What are some of the signals that you need, the ways that recognized delegates can help you?
Good question. So my approach has been really, again, data is something that you need, that it's good to have, but it's also not, I wouldn't say how, like, necessarily it's not that mission critical at some point. Like, being totally honest, like if you tomorrow you can't access data on it, it will make your life more difficult and you make worse decisions, but you can still make those decisions. Like it's not core as like smart contracts or P. But it kind of permeates everything, all the entire organization. So my exercise has been talking to people to figure out their needs. And what changes, what changes and what doesn't change, because there are a lot of things that just don't change, right? Like there's a lot of work that's been done nowadays that will still be done in the future. Particularly with governance and delegates, the thing is like we're in a difficult position because we are all figuring this out as we go along. And I can see this also from the delegate side. Like last week, I asked you in the office hours about what type of budget you would like to see in January, and there was a lot of mixed answers there. So I'm gonna try to get as much feedback as possible. My way of approaching this is trying to figure out first the differences between a core unit budget and an EA budget. Things like where does the risk lie? For example, is there currently in core units we taper the risk by kind of asking for a budget with the possibility to return funds, which implicitly also it's also said that we also expect that if we run out of budget, we can request more, and governance will be open to that. So that's what I know. A couple of core units have done that through SPFs, for example, where they request extra money because they already spent the entire budget. So my current thing is that the EA we have more independence and more risk on that. You ask for a budget, and that's what you get, and that's what you have to deliver against. Yeah, a couple of like aspects of that. Also, there's a lot of people maybe now that either are not users, but would like to be users in the future, or more importantly, users are current users right now, but that it makes sense under this current model. In the future, maybe they might not be users because they have a better way of arranging that service. So yeah, no, so it's a lot of just kind of discussions and I have this idea and then I present it to you and you can give me your feedback on that. But that's, yeah, no, when I'm slightly worried about, let's say in January, is that you're gonna get a lot of proposals I think are not easily comparable against each other. So it's going to be tough to navigate. And also you're going to be having to give multiple feedback to a lot of these proposals at the same time while we are rushing through this period where we need to make all these changes before they go into RFC. And what we're seeing right now, right, like the core units that got rejected, the expectations that at least some of them will be still be part of the Maker ecosystem some way or another. But they have to wait 3 months now to resubmit their budget, which I know it's difficult also because from a point of view where you are a full-time contributor, that's your livelihood, right? So you kind of put not only myself as well as like I put my team in a position of uncertainty where it's like, right, if let's say the March vote doesn't go well, then he opens up a really big uncertainty period where it's like, hey, I think it's going to be okay, but I ultimately don't have that knowledge.
Is this something that core units facilitators actually share with each other and collaborate on those things? Because I actually don't get why those budget proposals need to be totally different and hard to compare. I think it could be at least better to compare, I would say.
Yeah, I tend to do that personally, like asking other people, maybe not asking about the other people's budget or budget proposals, but like about mine. Because again, mine, like at the end, the needs are kind of diluted, filtered by them. So I basically I don't live in a vacuum. Like data does not live in a vacuum. So for me is, I don't know, if growth also tells me to say, hey, we have no need for data or we don't have no need for your services, then it's a completely different ballgame. And my expectation is that other people also kind of do this, talk to each other.
It's not
but
like
it's a good point of this.
Orchestrated, structured way of doing that together.
No, not I have seen. At least for like the previous budget that I helped prepare, we didn't share with other core units beforehand. But that could be a fair point. But again, it's also been part of one of the assumptions of core units about the independence. And if you like presenting it sideways or this way, it's up to you. And maybe one way is better received by governance than a different way.
Yeah. Now I was just, it just popped into my mind that, I don't know, it's already a couple of months ago, we needed to, MKR holders needed to decide on, I don't know, it was some kind of weird financial mathematics term that I didn't know before. What was it? Something like, I don't know, we needed to vote on an IRV vote for how much money do we need to cut from the budget or something like this. Can anybody remember?
The target, right?
Yeah,
the methodology of which determine the target.
Like net profitability ratio or something.
Yeah. So that was up for vote, and I didn't like this approach too much, and I actually forgot about this, and I was wondering, hey, shouldn't this have been some kind of trigger to actually work in a structured way between all the core units regarding the budget proposals? Not only in terms of how do we actually make them more comparable, but to make them more reasonable to each other.
Yeah, and again, I get the point of, like, from a delegate perspective, you want to make a holistic decision rather than doing individual decisions that maybe don't match up comparably with each other. But we kind of had this example before with MKR vesting programs. Like, at least for me, like I looked at the SES model and just I did copy paste. I'm happy with like this kind of rough consensus. But then we saw a lot of core units coming up with their own models. And then that kind of generated a problem within core units where some might feel that their own, like the other person's approved MKR vesting program is better than their own, right? So I think you either have, and it's difficult to do in a DAO, right? Like either everyone's on the same page or everyone's doing their own different thing. It's difficult to kind of mediate between the two.
Sure, but I mean, collaborating on something like same standards for how do we do proposed budgets or vesting or whatever, that would actually also be beneficial for core units as well, right? At least for the majority of core units, it would be beneficial. So
yeah, but this is, I think we're getting into game theory now, which is it only works if we all do what we're supposed to do. You also have a lot of advantage by going the other way, being the only one that goes the other way.
Yeah, but on the long run, it's also some kind of building up a critical mass and setting standards just by facts. So I think this is how you do revolutions within companies as well, by unionizing and finding partners that want to move in the same direction as you, and by that you can try to create a critical mass, which then becomes the standard or enforces a standard, even if it's just derived from that.
Yeah, but then on the other side, we need you delegates to keep us true. And like, if there's one core unit abusing something, they should be, I'm not saying penalized, but they should have a different treatment.
Yeah, totally. I think the really interesting thing is, and I don't have an easy answer, is like, what's a delegate's function? Because like, if you look at a traditional hierarchical company, then this is like CEO territory, right? Like the CEO says like, hey, I need a profit and loss statement from that department, and it has to look like that. So in a DAO, we don't have that function. Like, that's basically like the whole point. And then the thing is, are delegates now the CEO role? And I would say they are not, because CEO implies management. It's like me sitting down with you, hey, Tadeo, okay, show me your P&L, show me the books, blah, 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 blah. And I don't think that's a good definition of what a delegate should do, but I'm happy to discuss, like, how do you see?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm interested on this. For me, it's like what you're referring to is like CEO is a role, and then the other thing is a function. So for me, the function is still important. I think there still needs to be a function, and for me right now, it is more on the delegate side of kind of doing this like quality auditing. I was like kind of this idea of like, is this core unit performing correctly? Are they true to the mandate? Are they true to the budget? Basically, are they true to the agreement that they had with us during in the initial time? For me, the role of a CEO includes a lot of functions that I don't think we need or do we want to have on the delegate side. So this idea of how well are you performing in terms of like deliverables, for example, for me, this has to be more of a role that here's complicated, but I wish there would be that we had a system between core units, because a lot of the work, a lot of the output from core units is consumed by other core units. And a lot of the, even if it's not directly consumed, we collaborate with a lot of things. For example, like layer 2 project, it's quite a few of us that get together on a weekly basis and review all the things that have been done. And I get directly affected if with P's decisions, and also like growth gets affected by decisions I make, by the way I portray the data and so on. We don't really have a formalized system of, like, I would say, like feedback giving in a way. Unless you have a good personal relationship, there's not that much information flowing. I can't go on the forum and publicly criticize, even if it's constructively, because it almost feels like an attack. So it'd be great if we had this kind of system. I think now with Endgame, we kind of have it under I think it's the admin team role. So there, again, you separate it from governance, or you separate it from, like, let's say, more the delegate role. And this function now is part of this kind of the admin team of like ensuring that the work is being done correctly, while the delegate will be sitting more on the tribunal and council or governor side of things. At least this is how I see it. But it's interesting because we have very little definition of what core units should be or should do, and much less on the delegate side. So we all come up with our own mental models on this. Like, do you agree with my perspective? Maybe I think you might have different points of view, or maybe like what core units should be doing again with each other, or how delegates should be interfacing with core units.
No, I think if I agree or not is not really so much the issue as that what you're pointing out, and what is clear in this discussion is that here's an area that is not defined, right? Like, I basically agree that delegates should do oversight, but then the question is, like, to be even able to do that oversight, I need to have some type of reporting. And then the question is, like, how does this reporting work? Is there a reporting standard? How deep is the reporting? For instance, excellent current conundrum is TechOps proposes a new budget. Okay, they reduced the budget by 45%. It's now like 1.3 million. And then I would have to judge, okay, is this a good budget? So how would I do that, right? Like, I would have to have a sheet where it's like maintaining of the forum, 250K a year, maintaining of the Discord server, 125K a year. And then I could say, well, okay, 250K is outrageous. Like, I can find somebody who can do that for like less than a tenth, right? Or not, or maybe I say, like, hey, actually, this is really reasonable. These guys are like actually delivering value, like a lot more value than I can expect. And so I think what you're pointing out here, and which is actually interesting because it kind of touches upon the mandate of your core unit and as well, and also of strategic finance, is that we need these kind of reporting standards and visualization of this information so delegates can even make this decision and even can perform this kind of oversight function. Because I think at the moment, it's really like me going there, meeting with these guys, looking at their books, you know.
Yeah, no, and then you have to go in and talk to every other core unit facilitator to get feedback on what we think of TechOps and the relationship. And you have to like mediate. It's like maybe Tadeo's a little bit upset with TechOps because of this thing. So maybe his negative review is not really that accurate. I think the biggest problem that we have Maker is like just the communication cost is extremely high.
And,
so
here you have that thing, because that's actually what was amazing about ETH Gathering, to have all these people like actually physically available, and you would like meet them on the hallway, and you'd be like, hey, we're discussing X, Y, Z. What's your opinion? And 1 minute later, you'd have like a different level of information. So we should probably have that more often.
Yes, I was about to say, for me, that was the biggest reason for organizing the conference. For me, it's like, it's so valuable. And I love working remote. Don't get me wrong. I seriously love it. I don't want to go to the office. But like just meeting in person every so often to just talk this out is incredibly valuable. Like I met Frank at the growth offsite, which for me was like a mind-opening experience. We were bringing subjects up, and we had people from different core units just giving their own opinion, and in 5 minutes we closed something that online would have taken us weeks, if not months.
Yeah, I'm actually a bit scared about East Denver, because I think one of the big advantages that we had in Barcelona, and which is also one of the reasons why I loved the ETH gathering, was it was just so small. It was like, how many people actually were there?
I think total tickets were like 330 or 350,
Okay.
but I need to check, but like, I'm pretty sure like it was like 300 people that attended, or a bit, maybe a bit less.
Yeah, it felt even less, and that was actually great, because then you're not sucked up in some kind of weird 20,000 people conference thing where you barely meet anybody if you don't organize. And in Barcelona, we were just bumping into each other all the time. That was great.
Yeah, for me, for ETH Denver, we need to kind of make a unanimous decision to all meet beforehand. Because again, even if it's like a day, I mean, hopefully it's a bit more than a day, but even with a day, we have this same, like we've already been doing this every once in a while with like different people. It's this semi-structured approach where you give, I don't know, I'm going to bring a subject up, I bring my point of view as things, and we can talk about it. And that's already a massive thing. Because no matter how much you do on site, you don't even need to make the final decision, but you have so much more information that when you then bring it back online, it's so much easier. And I think it's super critical to like now thinking about Endgame and how we're going to grow the ecosystem much more. Because also this is I think another nice aspect of Endgame is that let's say create a framework where we can have a lot more people be part of this project. Because right now we are we're probably like 200, 300, I think it's 100 and something people in core units, almost kind of maybe almost full time, with delegates and delegate teams and everything. It's just too many, and I think our current organizational structure just can't take it on. So now, let's say in the future, we're in Endgame, we are able to be like 400, 500 person organization. How do we do an offsite? I mean, other organizations do it, and it's interesting. Like the Graph, for example, it's a collection of fully independent companies that some entities have certain functions, some don't. So from the foundation, they organize like subject matter expert specific retreats. So they'll grab all the indexers and they'll put them all in one room. And that's kind of when we need to start doing it. We'll probably need to have at some point MDAO admin teams all put in one place together, all smart contract engineers all in one place, because then you'll have P that will essentially be building the core, but then you'll have other smart contract teams that will be building on top, and then sometimes maybe team A and B look at each other and was like, we're building the same thing, or like, if you build this, I can build it on top of you. And I think that ends up happening more in person than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds to me like we need to get a delegate house going at ETH Denver so we can all get together and work on a lot of this
Definitely.
stuff. Tadeo, it's been great having you back again on the show. You know, I wish we could keep going and talk a little bit more about the future of MakerDAO and the endgame state. But for now, you know, I want to thank the co-host Raphael and Schuppy for helping me have you here once again. We look forward to seeing you in 2023. And for sure, I think that, you know, there's definitely needs to be a lot of improvement in the way a lot of these core units transition. So, you know, looking forward to seeing how you bounce in 2023, especially to this song that we're playing right here. We all gotta kind of bounce to it. And, hopefully,
no, thank you for having me. Seriously, again, I'm putting up with me. Happy to be here.
Tadeo!
That was fun.